WireThe old-style British passport that served us well for years and the EU passport that replaced it, realising its symbolism at a time when we are leaving the EU. Immigration Minister Brandon Lewis announced in December that from October next year the passport cover will switch from the burgundy colour to a fetching shade of blue reminiscent of that used before harmonised EU passports were introduced in 1988. So what does the government then do? It negotiates a contract for the job of printing the passports to be taken away from De La Rue, which does the work in a factory on Tyneside employing 600 people, and given to the Franco-Dutch firm Gemalto. I am no protectionist. If we are to thrive after Brexit, it is vital that we run an open economy which welcomes competition and investment from around the world in return for British firms being granted similar opportunities abroad. While free trade inevitably hurts some businesses, the overall effect is always the same: it enriches us as a country and adds to global wealth. But surely when it comes to a sensitive document such as a passport, there are considerations other than just price. Matt Cardy, WireThe new British passport should be produced by a British company. It is vital that we have a document that is hard to forge and difficult to steal. Otherwise we are leaving an open door to criminals and terrorists. That is why, for example, France treats the printing of passports to be an issue of national security. The work is only allowed to be done in France, where the process can easily be monitored and controlled. So why is our government happy to send the work of printing passports abroad? It is hard to criticize the existing arrangements. Since the first passports with biometric data were introduced 10 years ago, passport fraud seems to have plummeted. Between 2007 to 2014, the number of fake passports seized at ports and airports fell by 2/3, from 3,300 to 1,100. No government contractor should be immune from the need to keep costs under control, but it is sheer folly to practice a procurement regime which always goes for the lowest possible price. That is a lesson we all learn when buying the cheapest sausages or choosing the cheapest builder over one who comes with bags of recommendations. It is a lesson too which you might think the government would have learned from the Carillion fiasco, when the company was showered with contracts for which it had tendered at a price it turned out it couldn't possibly deliver. The result is a horrible mess, with construction projects and other work having to be picked up by other firms. I am not saying that Gemalto wouldn't do a good job at printing passports, but the record of farming out contracts for public services to all and sundry is hardly exemplary. We have had botched PFI deals with the taxpayer shelling out millions more for new buildings than had they been built with money borrowed by the government. We have had the government having to call in the army when security firm G4S found itself unable to supply enough security staff for the Olympics. On the railways we have had train operators taking the government for a ride, winning franchises on the back of promises to pay hefty premiums to government, only to give up their franchises early and avoid the payments. Daniel Sarabji, AFP, Getty. You might think the government would have learned from the Carillion fiasco. The government kept telling us that it wasn't the business of the state to run railways. Yet 20 years after privatization, many of our train services are run by other countries' state-run train operators. National rail companies in France, Germany and the Netherlands are all involved. The difference is that the trains they run here seem to be vastly more expensive than those they run on their home systems. British commuters, most of whom have no choice thanks to the monopolistic franchise system, seem to be treated as sitting ducks who can help to subsidize services in the company's home countries. It is a similar story with water and electricity services, privatized only to end up in the hands, in several cases, of foreign state-owned firms. Sometimes it is right to put public services out to the lowest tender, but it has become too much of a doctrine. If the public sector is doing a good job, or as in the case of De La Rue and passports, a private sector company has had a successful long-term relationship with the government, why the obsession with trying to find someone to undercut them by a few pounds? Getty, BBC. Nigel Farage is furious that British passports will be made abroad if we end up with redundancies on Tyneside as a result of the passport decision. Taxpayers may end up shelling out more in benefits than they save on passport printing costs. This is a part of the country where people voted heavily for Brexit precisely because they feared losing their jobs to foreign workers and whose support the government needs. It is the second time in a week that those who voted Brexit have been left feeling cheated by the government after fishing communities in Scotland learned that we will not, after all, be leaving the common fisheries policy when we officially leave the EU next March. It is only thanks to those Scottish seats that Mrs May survived in number 10. Life is not going to get any easier for the government over the next couple of years as the Remain lobby ramps up its campaign to overturn the referendum result. The government could do itself a favour by ceasing to offend some of its natural supporters.